Build your better breakfast at Subway with the tasty 250 combo, a 16-ounce cup of freshly brewed Seattle's best coffee, and any delicious egg muffin melt. And don't hit the snooze on this deal. Right now, come in before 11 a.m. for a $5 foot-long breakfast sub. Subway, eat fresh. The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. One of my favorite days of the year, December 15th. What does that mean for NBA fans? You know what that means? That means you can trade people that you signed during the previous summer. And that means we're about to have some trades. So we invited our friend on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline who hasn't been on the BS Report all season. Now he's here, Ric Bucher. What's happening?
How are you, man? We have to get to the whole landline issue right off the bat. By the way, I am on a landline, but every time you bring this up, and every time anybody like tweets me or I hear from anybody, get a landline so you can do a podcast.
We put pressure on you.
I mean, I feel like it's 1980. I'm looking up at my Farrah Fawcett poster, and I've got my Coogee sweater on and my members only jacket, and I'm ready to roll. But I need to know the truth because I believe that this is a canard.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with needing a landline.
Why?
Why are you so fearful? I don't know. Maybe it's not fearful.
No, because when we do the three-man pod and you're on a cell phone, you're on a 1-second delay, so we're interrupting each other all the time. You'll see, because much later in this podcast, we're going to call House, and you'll see how nice it works because we'll be talking without interrupting each other.
Okay.
Well, hey, listen.
Now I understand.
Listen, Carmelo's going to get traded to the Knicks. Why do people?
No, he's not going to get traded to the Knicks.
He's going to get traded to the Knicks.
No,
Why do people think
not.
the Nets have a chance at this?
What's that?
Why do people think the Nets have a chance to get him?
Because the Nets have turned down the possibility of making other deals because they have been given the impression, and this could be, look, after what LeBron did last summer, the possibility of players duping teams as far as what their intentions are, I recognize now that there's no honor there. That the willingness to manipulate things is very much in play. But that said, the Nets are convinced, based on everything that they're hearing, that they still very much have a shot, and they have the best shot. And that the real delay here has been that the Nuggets brought in a new GM, Masai Ujiri, and then transferred the control of the team from Stan Kroenke to his son Josh, and that all that movement has sort of delayed. Okay, we got new people in place. What do we want to do now? It's on our watch. Do we really want to trade Melo? And if we want to trade Melo, do we want to trade Melo for like a Andre Iguodala where we kind of be trying to plug and keep rolling, or do we accept that, you know what, we're really in a rebuilding stage?
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing is that they are coming to terms with the idea that they are in a rebuilding stage, and that you know what, we need to trade them for draft picks and young talent. And to this day, nobody has been able to make a better offer than the Nets. Well,
why did that trade fall through? Let's go into that, because that trade was sitting there, and it seems like Melo squashed it.
From my understanding, it wasn't Melo squashing it. It was the Nuggets saying, Brett Barup, who was formerly, one of those quasi guys, the man next to the man,
right,
with Stan Kroenke.
Had a lot of those.
He was the one who set up that whole deal. And when they decided to go in a different direction, Josh is very close to Melo. The idea was, hey, wait a minute, let's see if we can salvage this. Let's see if we can convince Carmelo to stay.
Well, it wasn't the greatest deal because they were actually taking on money, which makes no sense, because if you're trading Carmelo Anthony for, whether it's 50 cents in the dollar or 70 or whatever it ends up being. You don't want to actually take money with the bad deal that you're making, right?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you're getting. Some of those draft picks are very, very valuable. You are getting a Derek Favors, who I know that people are all over the map about who and what he is, but he looks like he could be a force at the power forward position.
Have you seen him in person?
I have not seen him in.
He's huge.
I can't say that I've seen him in person. Yeah,
he's huge.
I've liked him from the time that he was in the draft. There's no question that he's raw, but I liked the glimpses that I saw of him in summer league, and I think he has a chance to be special.
I think if the Nets get Melo, which I still think that he's going to the Knicks, and that's how this plays out, and I think that's where he wants to go.
Before we get to that, in talking to people around the league, and I know that our friend Chris Sheridan is very adamant that this is going to happen with the Knicks, or it has to happen with the Knicks.
Yep.
If you're Denver, there's no way that you do that deal that everybody's talking about. There's no way that the Knicks can make you a deal that is in any way attractive. That's the biggest problem.
I kind of agree with you, but on the other hand, the way I think he's playing it is he wants to go to the Knicks, and they either trade him there now or he signs there this summer. But either way, he's going there.
But here's the thing with Denver, and this is where the leverage kicks back to Denver. Denver is taking the position. Look, we're not taking. I mean, I've been told this a number of times. Denver will not take the deal that New York has on the table. They would rather let him walk than take on a bunch of stuff that makes no sense.
I agree, which is probably why that's how this plays out.
But see, that's the leverage that they have. You want to
who has the leverage?
You want to leave all that money on the table, or do you want to meet us halfway where you get to New York? And as much people like to say New Jersey is not New York, you can live in New York.
No, come on. He's not going to New Jersey. And also, he can undermine this over the next 2 months. Don't count that part out, right?
All right.
Aren't there ways for him to undermine this?
How's that?
Kind of like what he did last weekend when he had those very gracious quotes toward the people in New York and how nice it was that people were going up to him and saying they wanted him to play there. And if I'm a Nuggets fan, that makes me so mad. Yeah. I want to boo that guy the next time he's in my arena wearing my uniform, because obviously he doesn't want to be there. Obviously this is going to play out like the Chris Bosh situation did. So
there's a lot of stuff in Denver that, for various political reasons. I mean, Melo's put himself in a bad position. There's no question. And but some of this you got to go back to. He's not on the best of terms basketball-wise with either George Karl or Chauncey Billups. And the George thing has been simmering for years.
Yep.
And so, but you're talking about a guy you're talking about a coach who survived cancer, and is one of the most affable coaches that anybody can ever talk to. And Chauncey Billups, who is the hometown hero who came home, and those are the guys that you have a problem with. I mean, from a PR standpoint, Melo's never going to win that, even if he had a legitimate case with either one of them. You're simply not going to win those PR battles, and that's sort of the place that he finds himself in. These things always get tricky. And I don't know that players always get the best advice on how to handle these. I believe that there's a great number of people in the public who, if a player was just honest and said, "Hey, look, it's time for a change for me."
He said that though.
What's that?
He basically said that.
Yeah, but he keeps hedging his bet, because then if it's like, would you stay in Denver? Yeah, I'd love to stay. Then.
Yeah, but it's you can read between the lines, and he's.
No. You absolutely can read between the lines, but that it depends on whether you want to read between the lines, and that's where the message gets mixed. Is you and I looking out from the outside say, "Oh, I know what he's saying," but the people in Denver look at it and go, "Well, he said." I mean, they cling to what they want to hear, And so then this becomes more of a mess. A lot, much like the LeBron situation. I mean, I honestly feel like the reason people in Cleveland, in part, feel so spurned is because he didn't let them know that this was coming.
Well, but Toronto, I think they knew the Bosch thing was coming.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is what this reminds me of.
For a year and a half.
I still think, like you said, the Knicks don't have enough to give Denver. I still think if you look at the assets that they have, they could get up to about $25 million in contracts if you include Gallinari, Randolph, and Chandler in the deal, plus their expirings, plus they can give somebody $3 million. And they could take back Carmelo and Kenyon Martin's contract and save Denver about $19 million this year, give them, a pick or two, whatever. And if it's mid-February,
give a pick or two?
They give them like the 2014 number one, whatever.
Come on.
I'm just saying, if
you got to sell tickets between now and 2014. You don't know where I mean, you need to have bodies.
But if he's leaving, you got to get something for him. You can't do what Toronto did with Bosch, where you just get a trade exception.
No, understood. Which is why it is nearly impossible that he would end up with the Knicks.
Well, I don't think it's impossible because I just tweeted a three-teamer because I think that a three-teamer is how this is going to have to play out.
Well, your tweet of a
three-teamer, Picasso of the trade machine,
changes the picture of.
No, it's an example of a trade that could work. Billups goes to Charlotte. Diaw and DJ Augustine goes to Denver. The Knicks send a couple expiring contracts along with Chandler and Randolph. No, I'm just saying they send that to Denver. They give both teams $3 million. They get Carmelo. They get Chris Anderson. They get Balkman. Denver clears some contracts. They get a couple young players. I'm just saying there are options out there. And I also think you mentioned Iguodala before. There's a three-teamer potentially here.
You do know that the Denver Nuggets really like Chauncey Billups. And that they would like him to come back and work for their organization, right?
Yeah, but he can do that after he retires.
You're not going to send him to Charlotte. You're not going to send anybody that you like to Charlotte.
Larry Brown.
You're not going to send anybody you like to Charlotte.
Fair point. Well, listen, though. You mentioned Iguodala before. I do think there's something here. If the Nets are going to get him, they could figure out a way to do a three-teamer where Iguodala goes to Denver and Derek Favors goes to Denver. If they're really serious about trying to get this guy, and then Philly gets picks and cap space, all that stuff, Denver gets that's 100 cents in the dollar for Carmelo, and the Nets get Carmelo. I think that's what they'll have to do. They almost have to overpay to get him. You don't agree?
Okay.
Because it's the Nets. The bottom line is they play in Newark. They're not going to Brooklyn for a couple years, and it's not New York. And you could say, oh, it's close to New York, but it's not. It's not New York.
You have I'm trying to think, 2012 they're supposed to be in Brooklyn?
Yeah, but what are the odds of that happening?
What do you mean?
What are the odds of that happening?
That they're going to play in Brooklyn?
I don't think they're going to be in Brooklyn in 2012.
Why not?
They're claiming they will, but have they even broken ground on the stadium yet?
Yes, they have.
So you think that stadium is going to be built and ready to go in 2012?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see any reason why. I don't see any reason why that. Hey, look, they got the Russian mafia behind this thing now, man.
That is true.
It may be done early. I don't know what shape it'll be in.
I
don't know if it'll be up to code, but
that's a good point. Yesterday was the first
playing outside, but.
Yesterday was the first Prokhorov trade that made you go, wait a second, what? They gave up Terrence Williams and got 2 number 1 picks? What? What kind of a dead fish was mailed to Daryl Morey?
That's just I really am curious about what's going on in Houston. I need another look at that blueprint. Figure out exactly where they're going with this team. I give Daryl credit. There's something about Texas, by the way, with Dallas and Houston, where they do crazy stuff. They just like to do things.
They like to add assets.
Yeah,
I think Dallas and Houston, that's an asset, I'm getting them.
Yes.
And I don't think necessarily sometimes that's the way to go, because if you have too many players, none of them are happy.
Well, and I honestly, this is the part where, and this is something that I hope to get at and do some real work on over the next couple of years. I really believe that the missing element, when we talk about analytics and we talk about trying to find a new level on which to build teams, a smarter way to build teams, the how you integrate personalities and chemistry, and the relationships on a team. To me, that is the unfound nirvana of how you can get the most bang for your buck. How you can make teams better than they are. I'll give you an example. The Chicago Bulls, for whatever reason, I love to break them down. Those guys clearly love playing together. And are better than the sum of their parts for that reason. And it's not a cheap team by any means, but I just there's an element there that I that's what I want to try to capture, and that's where I think analytics really misses the boat sometimes. When you look at the numbers and you don't look at how those personalities mesh to create those numbers.
Well, a great example of that is the Carmelo for Joakim Noah and Luol Deng trade that everybody just and people were like, Chicago doesn't want to make that? What? Are they crazy? And it's like, yeah, actually that's a terrible trade for them because Noah will allow them to do everything that they need to do defensively. He's one of the best 5 rebounders in the league. He's a gamer. He's the leader of that team, along with Rose. And why do you want to mess that up and just bring in another scorer when you already have Rose? That makes no sense. It's a stupid trade.
Well, honestly, the other part is that people making the comparison between Miami and Boston, and saying the new big three, and what they're not looking at are where those guys were, the personalities of those guys, and the fact that a Ray Allen can be a catch-and-shoot guy and doesn't need to touch the ball to impact the game. Kevin Garnett doesn't have to – you don't have to run plays for him to impact the game.
Right.
And that's not the case with the big three in Miami.
And, if you had Chris Paul in the Wade spot and – Joakim Noah in the Bosch spot, or you could come up with a lot of combinations. Might be better off. The thing that I've noticed with Miami the last couple of weeks is, they finally understand that if they're going to win, it's going to be by running. And Wade and LeBron in transition are devastating. And I think they're this year's Orlando now, where they're just going to kill lesser teams because they know they can run them off the floor. I want to see them try to do that against the Celtics and Bulls.
Well, the problem is that you can't play that way in the postseason. Nobody runs in the postseason. The game slows down. The game is played below the rim. And what they've really done is, quietly, is they took LeBron off the ball.
Yeah.
They put him back to small forward.
They got a real point guard.
What's that?
They basically dumped Eddie House. They told Eddie, we don't need you to stand over there. We're just going to have you be on the bench now. Exactly.
And Chalmers is playing more, and I think he's a better fit defensively. And Dwayne Wade has asserted himself. There's no more deferring. There's no more. But the other thing they're doing is they're saying, okay, LeBron, the third quarter's yours. Wade, fourth quarter's yours. And I don't, while that has simplified things, and now those guys play with a hunger when it's their turn to put up points.
Yeah.
I don't know that now when you shorten your rotation and you get to the postseason, now you got to go back to playing everybody at the same time all the time. Look, are they? I mean, they're breathtaking to to witness at times.
Well, you saw it Friday, especially in person, when those little 8-0 runs they can put together are unlike anything that's happened on a basketball court.
They can just overpower you, and still, I mean, this is one of the things that I probably that I'm guilty of with LeBron is that he can make it look so easy at times.
Yeah,
because he's so big and strong and fast that he gets to the rim at times that it's just you take it for granted.
And the other thing is if you're lazy on defense, and we saw the Warriors got a little lazy on Friday night, and we've seen it just in general. Though LeBron and Wade can have fast breaks where it's 1 against 2 or 2 against 3, and it's a legitimate 2-on-1 fast break for them. The other two guys don't matter. They're going to get to the rim.
Yeah.
So,
they go past the first 2 guys.
Yeah.
They just leave them.
They're not fast breaks. They're almost like jog breaks. Or they're never really at full speed, and it never feels like a fast break, and all of a sudden it's, layup, done.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, what just happened?
Yeah.
And that's
I have not spoken to you, and I was so upset that I actually didn't get to be at home.
Yes.
The first time I've been at a game and wished I had been at home. Your general feeling about having that experience.
I loved it, and I thought, I was nervous. The hard parts are you're sitting in this cramped table with a guy on your left and a guy on your right, and I was in the middle. So anytime I had to talk, I had to pivot to one side or the other, and I was worried for the first quarter about interrupting somebody.
Right.
But eventually you kind of realize, Dan Shulman stopped talking. He's going to let one of us say something, and if Mark doesn't speak, I'll say something.
Yeah, the mechanics are the toughest part.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the sight lines aren't great.
No, you're almost too close.
From where
as weird
you
as
are,
that
exactly.
sounds. Yeah.
You have bad angles. Has your appreciation for sideline reporters has it gone up or down as a result?
It went up a little because I thought that game was a really good example of why sideline reporters are important, because David Lee was clearly hurt and something was wrong with him, and he was carrying his elbow in a weird way, and he had no energy, and it was like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And then Heather Cox comes in and she tells us, hey, he still has this infection in his elbow, and it still bleeds every once in a while, and it's bandaged, and they're telling him not to play, but he's playing. Like, that's when sideline reporting is valuable. When you're telling me there's a specific reason why this guy stinks tonight.
Right.
So
it's the thing that I don't get is why we pay. I assume we're paying Jeff Van Gundy a lot of money. We pay our guys a lot of money. I have no idea why we pay them a lot of money, because it's the kind of job. It's not a job. I mean, it is what we all do sitting on the couch at home.
I know. It's not that they don't deserve it.
We're watching a game with our buddies, and we just get to riff off of it.
Yeah.
I see why we should be paying our sideline reporters a ton of money, because that is a really difficult job. And,
I said that to Jackson on the way.
And it's thankless having to interview coaches, in the course of their job. It's like, going in and talking to a neurosurgeon as he's
right.
You're trying to get a pithy quote from him. But for Van Gundy and Mark Jackson and John Barry and all these guys, they should be paying us to get to do this. And I have no idea. I mean, it's ESPN is making buckets of money, and we're very smart and all of that. I mean, we're just churning out the dough. But this is one flaw in our business model that I do not understand, is that we pay these guys not just that we pay them, but we pay them a lot of money to do something that, quite honestly, they should be doing at best for free.
I said that to Jackson after the game. We were waiting for we were in the van, and we were waiting for 2 other people, and I just looked at him and I was like, I can't believe that's your job. And he's like, and he just started laughing. He's like, I know. Why do you think I don't want to coach? And, and it's the same thing with Steve Kerr last year. I would talk to him, and he'd be like, I don't know if I want to be the GM again, doing TNT on Thursday nights and then just working the playoffs. It's pretty appealing. And I didn't really totally get it until I did a game. I was like, I would never want to be a GM over doing this. It's
so brilliant on these guys' part, too, because they, I'm sure that they can't make, they don't make as much for us as they do as although it's getting close, as a head coach or a GM. But so they do this, and then they dip their toe back in, and they sign a big deal, and they coach or they GM for a couple of years, and then what do? As soon as it's like, okay, I got my money, I've done that. Let me run back and go do the TV thing. And the beauty of it is that teams out there listen to these guys on the broadcast, on the telecast, and go, man, that guy he really knows the game. He's so well. They're telling you all about it. They're telling you everything after the fact.
Right.
And there's a lot of guys out there who, I mean, honestly, if you're able to say what you should have done or what the play should have been afterward, or as you're standing outside of the fray, that's a lot different than being on the sideline. And just in case somebody takes this too far, this is a large part of this is tongue in cheek.
Yeah, and you're a sideline reporter. I think
I am every once in a while. I'm doing Christmas. I'm doing Christmas Day. That'll be my first game.
Oh, beautiful. Doug Collins is a great example of somebody that was on TV so long, saying smart things for so long that people forgot everything that happened when he coached. I don't think he ever coached a team for more than 3 years.
Yep.
And the last time he got fired after 2, and the time before that he got fired after 2.5. And somehow enough time passed that everybody forgot all of those things. They're like, oh, cool, Doug Collins, he's great.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's actually not that
well,
great.
I'll say this. I mean, it takes a unique skill set to be able to coach in the NBA. People who believe that it's all X's and O's. It is so much more than that.
You're a substitute teacher.
You're a substitute teacher, and you're managing personalities. Not only are you a substitute teacher, but you're a substitute teacher, and you're taking them in for SATs, and you're supposed to score better than the school across town. And if you don't, then you stink.
Hey, I wanted to go back to what you were talking about, teams measuring chemistry, and that you think that's where it's going and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's
I don't know if that's where it's going. I believe that's where it should go.
I think that is where it's going, and I know for a fact that's something that Dallas takes very seriously now, and was one of the big reasons that they made the Tyson Chandler trade, because they felt like his personality and the people that knew what he did for that Team USA team and all that stuff, like that got them all excited, thinking this is the kind of guy we need. I mean, they made the trade before he did Team USA, but it was one of the reasons, because he's a good guy. He's a leader when he's healthy and all that stuff. But what's funny is they value that stuff, but then on the other hand, they spend all this money on Brendan Haywood, tell him he's going to be the starting center, and then make the Tyson Chandler trade after the fact. And it's like, well, your chemistry guy should have told you that now Haywood's going to check out because he's mad because he's not the starting center. And that's what happened.
Right. Well, it's funny how the teams get into these, and I've heard this countless times, and I think it happens more with big men. Big men first, I would say, just a perimeter go-to scorer second, where teams get suddenly nervous and they go, oh, we don't have a big man.
Yep.
Or you know what? There's no big men on the market, and we have one. And that's how an O'Donnell Foyle or Eric Dampier. That's how guys end up getting these big contracts where you look at it and go, what?
Yeah,
what?
Joel Anthony.
What? Because they freak and they go, we are not going to have anybody who can play that position.
Yeah.
And then they get into the season and they're like, we got to play the 6'8" guy at center anyway because that's the only way we can win.
Yeah, it's funny that teams try to build their team before the season instead of just like I think the 2008 Celtics are a great example of a team that didn't panic in the summer and make all their moves then, and they were just like, you know what? We're going to trust the process here and trust that we're going to get a veteran buyout guy who will complete things for us, which is what happened. They got P.J. Brown. They could have panicked that summer and said, let's grab this guy. Yeah. And they didn't. And it was really smart. And teams don't always do that. And I think with Miami, they panicked a little. They tried to build their team over the summer once they got the 3 guys. And then they did the Joel Anthony contract, which was just reprehensible. And the Mike Miller thing, a little more defensible, but they trade Beasley. I don't know if they needed to do all those things right away. I think they could have taken some time with it, personally.
Yeah, but you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, and look, for part of this is, and not necessarily with Miami, because I feel as if Miami is one of those places where everybody's on the same page.
Yep.
But there's a lot of places where what the GM wants to do, what the owner wants to do, and what the coach is insisting that they do, and then probably throw your star player in there. Those are all powerful voices, and sometimes, the owner runs roughshod and says, "No, we got to have well, what about this? How come we don't have one of these? Or we got to have this guy, or we got to do this. Or the coach will say, hey, look, I can't coach this team unless you get me, X, Y, and Z. And if he has the owner's ear over the GM's ear, then there's times where you have these situations. Even with the Lakers, I'm always amazed at like Phil's willingness to kind of take these little pot shots at Mitch, where when they picked up Joe Smith, he's like, and they've been looking for a big man, and Phil's kind of been complaining about I need another big on the roster, and they get Joe Smith, and Phil's like, yeah, well, we better than John Doe, although we could have used John Doe too. I mean, it's like, wait a minute, you do know that this is you're talking about the GM, sort of sideways in a sideways fashion. You're talking about the GM who has handed you a team that's won 2 championships in a row and very likely could be winning a third. It just sometimes it gives you an insight into how like everybody has their own perspective of the way things are and the way they should be.
Yeah, Kupchak should have a 5-year grace period from Phil for pulling off the Memphis trade.
Yeah, well, there's another case where, and we're seeing more of this too, which really intrigues me. We're seeing more nepotism as far as owners wanting their sons or family to take over the team and want them in there. Hey, going to the GM and saying, hey, can you show Junior the ropes?
Oh no!
And
you're not saying that's happening with Joey Buss, are you?
Well, I will say this: Joey Buss was very integral in the design of the championship rings.
Oh, good. That's a great responsibility for him.
No, but Jim Buss was. When they went through the whole Rudy T era and some of those moves, Jim Buss had a very, very large voice there, and the intrigue of the Buss family with the Lakers is really fascinating. With the Jeannie and Jim can't stand each other. And Jerry wants to cede the team to Jim, even though Jeannie, track record wise, probably deserves to have a larger voice.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so, but then there's like the whole Phil dynamic, and so that kind of puts Jim and Phil at odds, and it's there's some palace intrigue there that nobody's quite captured yet.
Let's talk about the biggest surprises, because now we're at the 6-week mark, and I think it might even be the 7-week mark.
Speaking of which, I had lunch with your boy Kevin Love yesterday.
He's got to be up there with biggest surprises, just because I think he was 12-1 to win the rebounding title before the year, and he's going to win it by 4 rebounds.
If that, I'm writing something off of our lunch conversation. He did not qualify to be a top rebounder last year, so he wasn't in the top, he wasn't listed.
No, I'm saying his odds were 12-1 going into the season, because I looked them up after I said in a thing that I thought Blake Griffin.
Were there really odds that were on that?
Oh, yeah.
Are you just making that up?
No, I swear to God. Dwight Howard is always like the heavy favorite. Like
he won it 3 years in a row. Why wouldn't he be?
Yeah. So I tweeted something that I thought Blake Griffin was a dark horse for the rebounding title, because just in case Howard slipped. And Kevin Love emailed me, and he's like, I guarantee you I get more rebounds than Blake Griffin. I'm like, oh. So then I looked up Kevin Love's odds. I was like 12-1, and I think I even put this in a column as one of like my random predictions. I was like, look at this Kevin Love 12-1. But now he is going to be potentially, assuming this continues, the first 2015 guy since Moses Malone in 1982-83, which is an amazing stat.
Yeah. No, and to be honest, if you look at, if somebody was really divining this, there's a way that you could see this coming. One, he's again, this is one of these things that you can't measure because he's not, he doesn't have a great vertical, doesn't have great wingspan or whatever. Being able to measure a guy's ability to track rebounds is something that quantitatively nobody's able to do, and yet Kevin Love has done this his entire career. He just has a sense of being able to read the trajectory of a shot and say, okay, this is where it's going if it hits the rim. And
by the way, it's a rare talent, and it's one of those things that if you play pickup, there's always those guys that just kind of know, and it's all about the angles. And really, he might be the only guy in the league right now who really knows where the ball is going 90% of the time. And it's really all about geometry.
Yep.
Guy shoots on the left side, the little Tim Duncan bank shot spot. If he misses that shot, it's either going to go over the rim or it's going to bounce off the rim and come back toward him. And those are the only two ways it can go.
Yep.
Kevin Love, as he sees him shooting it, will run to whatever spot is open, and now he has a 50% chance of getting it. Right. It's amazing to me that guys don't understand this who play basketball for a living every day.
Well, there's also I feel like there's also guys who, when they may have a sense of where it's going to go, but they're jumping to get it.
Yep.
And once they go up in the air, your ability to adjust for an awkward bounce, or if it doesn't quite go where you think it's going to go, you're out of the picture.
Well, wasn't that the famous Bill Russell quote? Bill Russell said like 90% of the rebounds are below the rim.
Yeah, Love brought that up at lunch yesterday.
Yeah,
quoted that, and there's a truth to that, and. You know, the things that he has, like, we don't think of him as athletic. I mean, that's sort of the knock on him. He's an undersized power forward who's not very athletic. But he's, in my mind, is like Steve Nash in that the things that are athletic about him are not readily apparent. Like, he has great hands. That ability to read the ball in the air, to me, that's an athletic gift. That's like somebody being able to pick up a curveball.
Great outlet pass that he can just throw by flicking his wrists, and it's 50 feet. That's another talent.
And his, you know, you look at his calves and his base. He's got a 37-inch waist, and you look at that and the way he runs, and you think, plotter, doesn't get off the floor, but that is having that base allows him, once he says, okay, this is the area the ball is going to, he owns that space.
Yeah.
Nobody's rooting him out of that, and with a little bump on a guy who starts to go up, he's taken that guy out of the equation.
He's really smart. It doesn't totally make sense until you see him in person, because on TV you can't capture it.
No, he does. I think for whatever reason, because he is a legit 6'9", 6'9.5", 260. I think a lot of it is in his lower body, and so he doesn't have that upper body ripped, David Robinson, Dwight Howard kind of look, and that we naturally equate that with, oh, what a great athlete. But that doesn't necessarily do as much for you as being able to dominate a particular area of the floor. That's what's always made Tim Duncan better than Kevin Garnett, is that you can't move Tim Duncan once he takes up residence on the block. Kevin Garnett, you can push out to the three-point line.
There's some GMs that I think blew it last summer, because I don't think it would have been easy to get Love, but I think you could have swayed Khan by overpaying, basically.
It wasn't, from what I've been told, the choice was, like, Rambis would have rather stayed with Al Jefferson than moved Love.
Agreed.
And it was just a matter of they could make the deal, they could make a better deal for Jefferson, and sort of lucked into this.
And I think the team that screwed up was Detroit, because Detroit had the 7th pick in the draft, and they could have, and this is when the T-Wolves were looking for a good swingman and all that stuff, and they could have put something together with the 7th pick, Tayshaun Prince, another number 1, and taken back some contracts with Love, and everybody would have said, wow, they overpaid, and really they wouldn't have. Because
you never miss a chance to bang on Joe Dumars.
Well, he put together a bad team. Let me ask you.
We should go back and check the podcast, because I believe you take opportunity in each and every one that we've ever done.
Is that a bad team? Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Bigger story this year. Derrick Rose making the leap, or Russell Westbrook making the leap?
I feel as if Derrick Rose has made a bigger leap, and I'm not surprised. I'm not really that shocked at what Russ is doing. So I'm going to go Derrick Rose because just because he's has Russ really added anything to his game based on what we saw at the end of last year?
I think the thing with Westbrook is this. He's now made it when you watch that team, and if Durant's shot isn't going in all the time, and they run plays for Durant in a close game, you're thinking, wow, they should have cleared out for Westbrook there. I never thought that team would ever get to that point where I was confused who would get the ball in the last 3 minutes, and I watch them now, and I'm a little confused. And that's what surprises me.
There are a couple of I believe that there are a couple of extenuating factors. One, Kevin Durant is now on everybody's radar. So he's getting more attention than he did last year. Two, he's dealing with a little bit of a knee injury, so he's not quite the same guy. Has not shot it well from 3-point range at all, and I see some fatigue and physically, this is one of the things, and I jumped on that Kevin Durant bandwagon very early. Is there's a durability factor in the way a guy is built. The Russ Westbrooks, and this is why the Russ Westbrooks and the
LeBron.
Derrick Roses they're built to take the burden in a way that a Brandon Jennings or even a Kevin Durant is not, just because they're long and lean and they can be deceptively strong for that kind of build.
That's it. You could say the same with centers. You could say the same with centers because, I always felt this way watching Andrew Bynum and Greg Oden. Like, oh man, these guys, the way these guys run, I just can't imagine them. And then you watch Serge Ibaka and you think that guy's never getting hurt. All right, you know what? We're going to split this up into 2 parts and bring in my buddy House. So stay tuned for part 2 of the BS Report with Ric Bucher and Joe House coming up right now.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
Thanks, Bill. Geez, after all that witty and observant sports analysis, it's getting a little warm in here. Oh, wait, forget it. It's actually these ridiculously warm and tasty Subway melts. The new Chipotle chicken and cheese fresh toasted on flatbread. And the new Chipotle steak and cheese built fresh from the bread up with melted in flavor. Just look at that melty cheese. Just want to roll up my sleeves and dive face first into the Italian BMT. The biggest, meatiest, tastiest. And melted till the cheese bubbles in melt-licious glory. Subway melts.